Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, and welcome on behalf of the Memorial Center for Entrepreneurship. We are going to have one of our first event in a hopefully series of events that are within a broader initiative that we put together at the Memorial Center for Entrepreneurship in order to try and increase the number of research projects with commercial outcome. And we invited John Valia to give us, or to facilitate this workshop on pitching research ideas to funding agencies and beyond. Hermjot is an entrepreneur, business capitalist, educator, and many other things that are in his bio here that you have. So I'll get out of the way and let Hermjot.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Hermjot Valia. I hope I pronounced that properly. As you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from here. I'm from Cornerbrook. And, there is comedy. You're allowed to laugh. So, how many engineers are there in the room? Because I just want you to aware. So I should direct my jokes elsewhere. Fine. So, I'm going to be talking about pitching. Is everybody in the right room? That's the first thing. Is everybody in the right room? So, I'm just going to pick on some of you, not all of you. I'm going to ask you why you're here. So, can I just ask you why are you here today?
Looking for what would be the way to getting the message out for industry. My research is applied, and there is a kind of miscommunication. Not all the way we are getting the messages through.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. Why are you here?
I want to polish my skills into getting the general public more interested in my work.
Zach, you're here because you're obviously a slow learner. Because this is the third time you've come to one of my workshops.
Yeah.
So, why are you here? Just out of interest.
Learn how to pitch my idea to government agencies for funding.
Okay, great. Anybody else here for different reasons? I'd love to know. So you're here for the same reason. That really helps. So the first thing you should do with any pitch is actually understand the audience. So what is it the audience wants? And everybody has a different motivation to buy. It's very interesting. So I do a lot of sales training as well, and the good sales training is not actually teaching people how to sell, but helping people buy. So I'll give a small illustration on that. So I'd like you all. So if there are accountants or mathematicians, you might need a calculator. Everybody else will be fine. So I want you all, and don't tell me the number, because this relies on having a good connection with the audience. Think of a number between 1 and 10. So I want you all to think of a number between 1 and 10. Now what I want you to do is multiply that number by 9. So take that number, multiply it by 9. Now what I want you to do is, if it's a 1-digit number, leave it as it is. If it's 2 digits, add them together. So it's 2 digits, add them together. Now subtract 5 from that number, minus 5 from that number. Now what I'd like you to do is change that number into a letter, where A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, etc. Now, as you can probably tell from my accent, I'm actually from Europe. So what I'd like you to do is think of a European country beginning with that letter. Think of a European country beginning with that letter, as it would be said in English. Now, this is my second day here in Newfoundland. So I'd like you to take the second letter from that country's name, the second letter of that country's name, and what I'd like you to do is think of a large animal beginning with that letter. Now what I'd like you to do is think of the colour of that animal. Think of the colour of that animal. Now take the last letter of that colour. Why is it a grey elephant from Denmark? So that's the difference between selling and buying. The reason why you have that wow factor is I'm still selling you something and I knew what I was going to sell you. But I ask questions in the right way to make you, so it's the illusion of choice. Because buying is you answering questions, selling is me selling to you. And buying is so much more effective. And pitching, the number one thing you have to do with pitching is you have to understand why. And the number one reason often when you're pitching, certainly with a private investor, is to get another meeting. So the number one objective is to get another meeting. And a lot of pitchers don't understand that. They think success is delivering the pitch. If I get to deliver the pitch, I've succeeded. That is not the case. The pitch is only successful if it leads to a call to action, whatever your call to action is. Somebody to understand what you've said, somebody to agree to a meeting, somebody to write you a check. I've personally invested in about 40 companies around the world. None of the companies that I have invested in, I do so on the basis of just the pitch. The pitch is the beginning of the conversation. The pitch got me interested enough to then have a second, third, fourth, fifth meeting. Okay. If you have any questions, please do ask. I want to make this as interactive. I appreciate you've given up your evenings to be here. That means a lot to me, so thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. So any questions? Am I speaking too fast? Everything is good? Is the temperature okay? The two things people always comment about any workshop is the food and the temperature. And then the content is a distant fifth or sixth. So as long as we get the food, which is great, thank you very much, and the temperature is okay for everybody? Yeah, it's going to be a success. We've got the biggest things done. So what I want you to do is start thinking straight away about why are you pitching? What does success in your pitch look like? And then work backwards. So what does success look like? So success might be me explaining to you what you do. That might be success. If I understood what you're doing, but then why is it important that I understand what you do? That must lead to another action. The framework I like to use whenever I'm pitching is something called AIDCA, which is AIDCA. And the framework I use whenever I'm pitching, whenever I'm doing a cold call email, whenever I'm writing a letter to someone that I've never contacted, and that is A, grab their attention. Grab their attention. I, generate interest. How is it relevant to them? You know, stress relevancy. Then the D is desire. Create desire. Why should I want this? Create desire. The bit that should be easy for all of you in this room is the C, which is demonstrate credibility. Credibility. Where is this proposition credible? And then finally, which the thing that everybody forgets, is the action. What is the action? What is the ask? What is the action? So grab attention, generate interest, create desire, demonstrate credibility, have an ask. So I think the reason I don't use a PowerPoint is because I think this is a very interactive thing. So what I'm going to do with everyone's permission is just actually do this live and actually work on your pitches rather than me telling you, because I think this is a practical skill rather than a theoretical skill. So I'm just going to pick on people and ask them to do their pitch. So can I ask you to, and you've only got 30 seconds. So in 30 seconds, what is it you do? Sorry, this gentleman here, sorry.
Okay. I'm doing biological research for bioenergy, taking waste biomass, converted into energy, dealing with agriculture and livestock industry. So the problem we face is that the customers don't come to us. We have to approach them. But they are not individuals, unfortunately. Individuals wouldn't invest. So we need to contact governmental organization where they have the fund, and then they motivate.
Okay. So let's stop, because you've got into a explanation of, so the problem you solve is, I think, you have come up with a technology or you have a method of converting livestock waste into energy.
Right.
Okay. And then the second bit was you need to go to government agencies.
Yeah.
Why would government agencies be interested in that problem?
Because it coincides with the strategic objectives of the government in terms of bioeconomy, in terms of...
Okay, all right. So the problem with that objective, what you've just said, is I now have 1,000,001 things to choose from. If the objective is that, if the hierarchy is that high up, so let's go be a bit more specific. What is it about animal livestock? Why is this a particularly effective strategy?
Because it is a major sector contributing to the economy.
How much, so this is a green technology, this is green.
Yeah.
How much carbon dioxide or methane does this produce? How many toxic gases does this does livestock produce?
A lot. The potential is huge, but it is not utilized.
Right. So I thought that that termites were responsible for the most.
Yes.
Termites were the biggest contributor of greenhouse gases. So the livestock. Any idea how much they contribute to greenhouse gases?
A lot, actually.
Yeah.
They are major source.
Yeah, but do you know how much? Because a lot is
The number you mean?
Yeah, roughly.
So probably 2/3 of United States and Canada emissions are coming from livestock industry. Fugitive methane emissions.
Okay. So if you started your pitch, 2/3 of all greenhouse gases in North America are coming from livestock.
Right.
If you start your pitch with that, suddenly everybody knows it's big, it's relevant, we're talking to North America. Right? There is a way to convert the waste produced into useful energy, which is also a major, I think that's the largest, as an industry, it's the largest contributor
Right.
to. So there is also a way by turning that into energy to have another double impact, right? So you could say there is a way to convert this using a technology. Because of the scale needed to achieve this, funding from government agencies is essential, because then it's about why is it relevant to them. So you've grabbed their attention, but now you've got to say why is it relevant to them? Why are you talking to government, not private sector? Then you've got to create desire. Our solution, what do you know that works about this? What works about this? What proof do you have that this works? Or
It is demonstrated.
you've demonstrated it?
Yeah. There is also like some extent of commercialization, like we installed, but we are financing, like we are facing a problem with finance.
Okay. Let's talk about the problems in a second. So you could then say, so we've got the attention, we've got the interest, desire. This is a proven, robust technology that has been tested. What is your name?
Nori Said.
Are you a professor? Or
Yeah.
My name is Professor Said. How much experience do you have in this field?
Around 9 years.
9 years.
After PhD.
Okay. And I have 9 years of postdocs experience just looking into this very specific issue. So that's demonstrating credibility. My ask of you today is, what I'm looking for to have this positive impact on the planet is, what is it you're asking for? What do you want?
Asking for potential funding for commercialization.
You can't ask, I hate the word potential. You can't ask for potential funding. It's either funding or it's not. There is no such thing as potential funding. So you're asking for funding.
for actually the fund will not come directly to the.
That's details. That's details. I don't need to know that. How much are you looking for?
Say $2 million.
$2 million. What do I get in? I give you $2 million. What do I get in return?
You will get in return generating bioenergy, replacing fossil fuel, cutting the.
No. What do I personally get? If I give you $2 million, what do I personally get?
Investment. You will get a profit for that.
Will I? I don't know, because I thought you were asking for government funding, or are you asking for
Yeah,
private?
but even if it is governmental, ultimately there will be a return on investment.
Okay. But what you've got to do is you've got to align. It's about understanding the audience first. So you've got to think the person you're asking $2 million for. I always remember. So we'll finish. Then I'll give you another example. So I'm asking for $2 million. Where will that take me to? How far will you go with $2 million? Where will that take you to?
For installation.
Installation. You'll be ready to install this in farms across North America.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not in farms. All farms. At least like 2-3 farms.
2 or 3 farms.
Yeah.
So it will be, and then you'll be ready to roll out after that.
Right.
By investing $2 million, we will be able to get to the stage where we are ready to roll this product out to every farm across North America.
Right.
Okay. That's your pitch. Okay, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get that?
Yeah.
We recorded this. Didn't we? So that. Anybody got any comments on that pitch? Any questions? Do you all follow there is a methodology to it, and doing a pitch is very much like being a stand-up comedian. It really is. You know, if you're in London and you start off with your joke being, you know, when you go to Tim Hortons Right. How many people are going to laugh at that joke? None, because we don't have Tim Hortons in London. So, well, we do now actually. There's just one's just opened because they thought that Canadians should be the only one who have bad coffee. So, so why is that joke in Arkansas? I do a lot of work in Arkansas. I'm actually the Goodwill ambassador for the state of Arkansas. Long story. But if you say to it in Arkansas, you know when you're running to catch a bus, why would you catch a bus? What are buses? You know, there isn't a culture of catching buses in Arkansas. So no, it doesn't matter what the second line is, what the third line is. They just won't laugh at the joke because they won't be able to relate to it. Yeah. So your first line as a stand-up comedian gets everybody on the platform. Everybody has to acknowledge. Yeah, I understand. The joke. Like when you're in Newfoundland, I knew that Cornerbrook was nearby. Had I said, as you can tell from my accent, I'm from London. That's not funny. It was only funny because I said Cornerbrook. Whereas if I'd said the same thing in London, they wouldn't have laughed because where's Cornerbrook? So the first line is very important. And the first thing you've got to do in your pitches is get everybody interested. So if I say 2/3 of all greenhouse gases come from livestock in North America, straight away everybody doesn't matter where you are, and then you have to make it relevant to the person you're talking to. Okay, so think about the attention statement. So I want you all to take a minute and think about the attention statement you're going to write down. What is the problem you're solving? What is the problem you're solving?
I'm trying to create an additive for plastics.
You're trying to create
additives, like nano additives for plastic industries, which can enhance the mechanical properties and as well as thermal properties.
Slow down. So what you did was you went straight into your solution. What you're trying to do, and we don't want to use the word trying. I am doing. It's like Yoda. There's no trying. You either do or you don't. There's no trying. So you are working on, and I'm not technical at all. So why does the world need what you're doing?
Because currently, we are using lots and lots of plastics, which are extremely hard to recycle. So if we could enhance the properties of the plastics, we can reduce the amount of plastics what we really need.
Brilliant. Now I understand. So he started with his solution, and I wasn't ready to buy the solution. Whereas had you started with, a lot of plastic isn't recyclable.
Yes.
They're not recyclable because, why are they not recyclable?
Because they are not degradable.
They're not degradable?
Yeah.
Okay.
So currently most of the plastics we are making much thicker than what we really need.
Okay. So when you say much, lots, a lot, I need more, you've got to give numbers to give some sense of credibility of the scale. So how much plastic isn't currently being able to be, how much plastic is not being able to be recycled?
More than 40% whatever we produce.
Really? More than 40% of the plastic we produce can't be recycled?
Currently we are not recycling.
Really?
Yes.
Because it's too thick or it's not suitable to be degraded?
Yes.
Wow. So imagine that as a statement. 40% of the plastic we produce can't be recycled because it's either too thick to be degraded or it doesn't have the right something in it. Imagine saying that. That, as an attention-grabbing statement, I'm interested in what comes next. The sad thing about pitching is you will lose about 40% of the audience every 30 seconds. So if you're speaking for 5 minutes, you'll do very well to hold on to some. So your first statement has to be really interesting. If somebody tells me what I'm working on is, I don't know you, I don't care yet. I don't care about what you're working on yet. Tell me about the problem. Get me interested. Because who would not be interested in something to do with 40% of all plastics can't be recycled? So that's your attention. Then think about your interest. Why is it relevant to me? Then think about why would I want it? Then think about what's your credibility, why you? And then think about the ask. Is that helpful? So that's just the attention statement. So has everybody written their attention statement? So who wants to write? So I'm going to ask you, what's your attention statement?
How did life evolve to the point where we can respire oxygen? How did life evolve to produce oxygen? Paved the way for life utilizing oxygen as a.
Okay. Brilliant. I'm really glad. There's always one. There's always one. So thank you. It's going to be you. Never, ever, ever, ever start a pitch with a question, because you lose the audience. Because you're all very intelligent people. So I'm going to say a word to you. I'm going to say a word to everybody, and I want you to write this down. I want you to write down the first 5 words that come to your mind when I say this word. So I want to say a word. I want the first 5 words. Family. You'll have to remember this then. Okay. So, I'll just ask, may I ask you to give me one of the words?
Stress.
Stress. Okay. Who else has written stress? No one else has written stress. Wow. Can I take one of your words, please?
Brother.
Brother. Who else has written brother? Well, not that many. Okay. Give me a word that you have.
Wife.
Wife. How many people said wife? More. Give me a word that you have.
Wife.
And another one?
No, I don't have any.
No more words. You just had your family begins and ends with your wife. Happy man. Very happy man. Another word?
Kids.
Kids. Who had kids? Okay. Great. Give me a word.
Home.
Home. How many people had home? A few. The point I'm making is a lot of you didn't have the same words. And yet family is, everybody understood what was meant by family, didn't they? Everybody understood. So when you say something like oxygen, life evolves, where do you think my mind is wandering? Especially when you are asking me to ponder. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to think of anything. Think of anything right now other than the polar bear. Right? Everyone's thinking about a polar bear. And that's what happens when you ask people questions. Their mind will wander. So when I give you an instruction, think about polar bear, despite me saying think about anything other than, so you have to tell people, whereas if you ask people questions, it's like, have we ever wondered? And you do. Or the answer is, I'm a creationist. Where do we go now? So you're pitching in Arkansas, right? Like I do. I remember doing a thing. I did at university. I did in my first subject was philosophy, and I remember the very first tutorial. The teacher said, the professor said, there are 2 books you need to read to acquire all human knowledge. First book is the Bible, and I was like, the second book better be really good because I'm only going to get half of all human knowledge. Now I said that in Arkansas, and the audience didn't react well to that comment. Because I was making fun of the Lord, etc., etc., etc. And you know, I'm not going to go into that debate, but you don't know what the audience is thinking. So when you do say something like, how did life evolve, oxygen, you will say, I'm a creationist, and you know, God is the answer to everything. So it doesn't matter what you're going to say next now, does it? Because I'm already out. Because, yeah, God. So are you going to have a new Bible or a new...
Well, I'd argue that I knew my audience in advance. Wouldn't expect to have a creationist read.
Oh, you never know. You never know. So, but the point is, I mean, I'm just generally be very careful about questions because you don't know what people are thinking. Because I remember somebody said, did you know that in the time it takes you to get a coffee, your computer could be hacked? And then they did the rest of the pitch, and they asked me what I was thinking. I said, I was thinking about a latte. I spent the entire pitch thinking about a promotion scheme that Starbucks had. And you know the stars, dash for stars? And I really was thinking I need to get 2 more lattes together. Because I was thinking about the time it takes to go to a coffee shop. Because I was invited to think about, did you know in the time it takes to get to a coffee shop? How long would it take me? Is there a Starbucks near? Right? And that's true, but that's how we all think. A question's an invitation to think. Can I have an attention statement over here? Zach.
1/3 of the homes in Canada can't use smart thermostats.
My answer was, well, they're not that smart then, are they? Wow, that's interesting. But that's too specific already, because I don't have a smart thermostat, and I'm actually one of the 2/3. So why should I care?
You care if you had.
No, yeah, right. Right, this is very important. And you said the same thing about I would know my audience. I love Twitter, and you can follow me if you want, at @PermJetValia. If you remember that, good luck. I didn't understand Twitter for ages. I just couldn't understand Twitter. And then somebody told me, imagine going into a room full of 1,000 people, and there are only 4 people you wanted to speak to. Wouldn't it be really helpful if they had a speech bubble above their head telling you what they're interested in? And that's what Twitter is. Wow, I get it. On Twitter, I can find people instantly who share the same weird interests. So if I wanted to find people who are really interested in, I don't know, chicken tikka ice cream, I will find on Twitter there'll be at least, I don't know, 1,000 people who really love chicken tikka ice cream.
What if you phrase the 1/3 of homes are inefficient and lose X amount of dollars for their owners? Would that engage the audience? And then
A bit more, but you could even that's too specific. You could go a level higher than that. You could go even higher than that.
Because a lot of people might not care about smart thermostats, but a lot of people care about, wait a minute, I'm losing money.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you want a smart thermostat? Save money. So 1/3 of homes cannot save money on their thermostats. 1/3 of houses can't save money on their smart thermostats because, or increasingly people are installing smart thermostats to save money on electricity. But yet 1/3 of Canadians cannot use smart thermostats. So you've got to go higher. But what was I talking about? I was talking about something. And I went before you answered. Twitter, right? So sometimes when you're pitching, especially if you go to a networking event, it's really important to remember that what you're trying to do is just say a few keywords. What is your hashtag? You know, so I just know that livestock, waste, energy. If those are the 3 things I remember about you, you've done really well. Because then I'm talking to you. Oh, what business are you in? Oh, I'm a farmer. Oh, really? And do you have a lot of livestock? Yes. And what do you do with the waste? Have you met Professor Suri? Let me introduce you. Do you see? And that's what happens in networking all the time. That's effective networking. So you just want, what are the 3 key things you want people to remember? It's almost like a hashtag. Whereas if you start off with what I'm working on is, but if you tell me, actually, 40% of plastics can't get degraded and we're working on that. Oh, what do you do? Oh, you're in a plastics factory. Do you see what I mean? It's about the hashtags. So you've got to get the first things out really quickly. Because it might be that, you're not interested in me because I don't have a smart thermostat, but these 4 people do, and I'm going to talk to them next. And then I know to ask them, what kind of thermostats do you have in your house? Oh, we just get talking about electricity bills. People have the weirdest conversation networking events. And then, Okay. So you've all done the attention statement. Could I have, in this, I'll go to this half of the room. What is your attention statement?
The UN has identified agricultural waste to feed the over 7 billion people on the planet. And in Newfoundland, in a single mussel processing plant, they produce 4 tons of waste a week. We've developed new technologies to process this products.
Okay, let's start again. Why has the United Nations decided that aquaculture is the way to feed 7 billion people protein?
Because it's more effective than feeding livestock on land, but producing protein.
Why is it more effective?
It produces, it needs less energy, less minerals. And the Earth is blue. When you look at it from outer space, you see the oceans, and so we've got a huge surface area to use to...
It's interesting, the Earth shouldn't really be called the Earth, should it?
No.
So how did you... See, I think it's more acute than that. It's not that the UN has ordained that we will eat fish. Whereas the way you're saying it, and I hope you don't mind, I hope you're all thick-skinned.
Yeah.
And you're British, I take it. So you're used to
Yeah, I'm used to good reading.
Good. So who cares that the United Nations, who I don't respect as an organisation, has ordained that I will eat fish? No, I'm going to carry on eating cow. No one's going to stop me because it's my God-given right as an American to eat cow. But that's how it comes across. Whereas had you said, we don't have enough protein on the planet to feed people. Yeah. So where we're going to, and by 2020, it is, don't mention the United Nations.
Okay.
There is predicted to be a 300 million ton shortfall in protein. The only way to fulfill this shortfall is through agriculture and through harvesting the sea. What is it your business does?
So you can look at her fingers there. She's got an example here. We're just, I'm a professor, this is my student, and so we're in the process of kind of coming up with a spin out here, but it's now, it's like an ethical, sustainable nail additive is our kind of first product from the nail, from the mussel shells.
Right, now you've done what they do in South Africa, so I do a lot of work. Zach, you remember I mentioned about the South African pitch? This was the South African pitch, right? I do a lot of work in South Africa, I go there every year, I'm there next month. Every South African pitch always begins the same way. Every South African pitch begins the same way. The world has many South Africa has many problems. Starvation, inequality, racism, the legacy of crime. My business has a solution to that. We will have a Facebook for cats. Do you see what happened there? Total mismatch. So there's me going on about the world starving in 2020. There's a shortage of protein. Oh my God, what we're going to do? But I've come up with nail varnish using mussel shells.
There's going to be a lot more shells. We got to think about it because we have to feed everybody, so we're going to have lots.
Okay, so how about
one of the things as well is that there's in Newfoundland you've got two options.
Yeah.
You can have use the waste for a local problem.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we're targeting is acid mine drainage, or we can target a high value product and get like Oprah or somebody to endorse it and kind of export.
Great. But what you could do as a problem
Yes.
is, increasingly we are turning to the sea to feed us protein.
Yeah.
That's great, but the problem with that is the amount of waste that it's generating. We have found, my business is looking at the ways we can apply that waste into meaningful things. One of the areas we've targeted, because it's a high value area, is cosmetics. The cosmetic industry is a $3 billion industry and growing, and people are consistently looking for green, environmentally sustainable cosmetic products. Introducing the first, does that make sense now? Because that's going away from the world's running short of protein. Avoid the South African thing at all costs. No, I kid you not, every South African pitch starts the same way. So, who else should we? Let's have something from that table. Lady over there, what's your attention statement? Yes.
Figure out the good ones. I'm just gonna say for it. Conventional training for after emergency preparedness do not account for people's individual differences, so they treat everybody same. And what I'm trying to do is identify the weakness and the strength so that I can make training effective.
Okay, great. Got it. Give me an example of where somebody, a doctor, not diagnosing you properly would lead to a bad outcome. Give me an example. How often does this happen?
Sorry.
So I think you're saying that when we come to emergency, all of us are treated the same?
When we are training people.
Oh, when we're training people. I'm sorry.
So the conventional training people, the training programs treat everybody the same. But in emergency, the effect of the stress that is on me, it can be very different than effect of the stress has on
Oh, so this is nothing to do with emergency. I thought you were talking about hospitals and emergency.
No, I'm
Isn't that
talking
interesting?
about after emergency.
Okay, so this is interesting. My apologies, I apologise. But I just heard the word emergency, and I immediately went with, and it's the accent, so that was a little bit of racism, right? I'm being serious. And that does happen. You got an Indian accent, you use the word emergency, oh, it's something to do with medicine and something to do with training doctors. That's where my mind went. Isn't that interesting? My mind went, so I apologise, but that's where my mind went. Whereas if you said, we all learn differently, we all know that we learn differently, and yet we're all trained the same. Because everybody relates to that. And that's okay, but when we're under stressful conditions, those differences come out. But can you give me an example of where, because to me it's still too theoretical. Give me a real life example where somebody would, because they've been trained the wrong way for them, it's not the wrong way, but the wrong way for them, how under stress that would manifest itself.
So I'll just give an accident example, for example, Piper Alpha. So we train all the after emergency installation under-invested, and we expect them that they will be able to handle the emergency. But what happened is when the actual incident happened, the YN was totally panicked and couldn't handle the stress. But we thought that the training was good enough that everybody could handle the stress. But here's one example of that. The training was not enough for him because he was more stressed.
So what is your solution?
So what I'm trying to do is
Don't use the word trying. What you're doing.
What I'm doing is we are developing training simulators, which are very much like video games. We put people in real fires and explosions and these kind of hazards because we cannot do that in real life, and see how that affects people. And based on, so for example, if I put you in, based on what your weaknesses are, we will give you adaptive training. So the one scenario in the next scenario, which you will be in, will depend on how you perform in the first one. So just acknowledging the fact that we can be very different, and the kind of training I need may be very different than the kind of
So you could actually, because this formula, this pitching formula doesn't always hold true. And sometimes you need to change it. So I'll give you an example of one of the best pitches I ever heard. So I was at an angel event in London, and loads of angel investors were there. And I hope you don't mind me constantly moving around. And I know I've really messed up the recording. So I just like to give everybody a different angle. I was at this event in London. There are about 8 companies pitching one after the other. Loads of people in the room. Loads of angel investors, and everyone is pitching for money. The 6th person comes up and says, "Could everybody please stand up?" You people stand up. Everybody stands up. If you're a company pitching tonight, or you're with a company pitching tonight, could you please sit down? If you are one of the sponsors of this event, thank you very much. These events would not be possible without you, but would you mind please sitting down? If you're here as a consultant or an intermediary or something like that, again, I've had conversations with some of you already, thank you. Would you mind sitting down? If you haven't invested in a technology startup in the last 2 years, would you mind sitting down? Thank you. If the idea of investing in an advertising, internet-based platform does not appeal to you, could you please sit down? There were 6 people left standing. He said, "Hi, my name's Enda McCarthy, and my business is around targeting your message to only the people that should be listening to it. I'd love to talk to you 6 afterwards. Perhaps I can buy you a drink. Thank you very much." So that breaks all the rules of pitching, you know, that formula. But how highly effective was it? So with you, you might just want to do that, where you say, to find out what we're really like, we've got to be in stressful situations. We all know that we only found out what our partners were really like when we were in a stressful situation. How many of us can say that? We only found out that our best friends weren't our best friends because we're suddenly in a stressful situation with them. We're like, whoa, I did not see this side of you at all. So we can all relate to that. We only find out what we're really like under stressful situations. But by understanding what we're like under stressful conditions, we can make sure that in anything we do, our training is adapted to be effective under stressful conditions. There are numerous examples I could give you, such as Piper Alpha, such as this, such as this, such as this, where it wasn't the training that was at fault, but it was the fact that the training didn't account for their response to stress that was at fault. My business, or my idea, will solve that problem. We will offer everybody working in a high-stress situation unique, tailored training so that they can always operate. My name is, and I'm looking for $100,000 to take my business to the next stage. And that's your pitch. Yeah, does that? Okay, any questions? Does this not work for anyone? Is anybody struggling with their attention statement? Everyone's good, so can I? Yeah, please.
No, I'm struggling.
You're struggling. What's your attention?
Well, if I had a good one, I wouldn't be struggling. But, so when you asked in the beginning, is everyone here pitching something?
Yeah.
So maybe I should have raised my hand. Well, increasingly, I think funding for basic research, there has to be some sort of commercial angle. For example, RDC in Newfoundland, even if it's basic science, they always ask, well, down the line, what is it? Why is the public investing money in your stuff? And I do computational statistical mechanics. I work on different systems, but I never really thought. I was always interested in just the problem for its own sake. I never really thought beyond, at the level of why would anybody be interested. So I'm cognizant of the fact that I've sort of changed my mentality about this.
So I might say something controversial for somebody who's a business person. I love pursuing knowledge for the sake of pursuing knowledge. And I hate this debate that some people have about science versus art. Without art, there's no point to science. Okay? So when you sometimes say something like, I'm being forced into a box, or I actually like knowledge for the sake of knowledge, nothing wrong with that. But what you can do is you can say, basic research always. So in your field, what is your field?
I do computer simulations of things like water, how it freezes, biomolecules, magnets.
So in that big space, how many spin-offs can you think of that came through that space? How many companies, how many applications? I can think of thousands of applications that came through that basic research. And your role is, do you have any students or any research that they went on to do things?
Well, after they finished, they went on to work in St. John's as, for example, a computational physicist at Solus Power. There's Andrew here, he's finishing his undergraduate, but he'll be doing a master's looking at quality control for polymer films, which is very crucial. And a postdoc is now working for Avalon Holographics. So the skills that they learn go on to help them.
So why not make that your angle? Why not make that your angle? And this is just an idea. I'm not suggesting for a second that that's what you should do. I'm just posing it. So you could say, we are constantly told about the talent shortage in Newfoundland, and that is a real barrier to growing the economy. Every year I turn out 7 graduates who work in highly innovative I fulfill that program. We need to continue to fund this basic research at a basic level to continue producing the talent that is Avalon Holographics is built on, Solus Power is built on, and if you continue naming 3 or 4 people, it's like, whoa. Does that make sense? So be careful that you don't, and you might think that I'm going to say this as an investor, that I want you to fit into, no, the investor wants to hear this. Who cares what the investor thinks? Google didn't have a business model. I remember the Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce, they did this famous thing where a Texan, and it had to be a Texan, bought a Rolls-Royce, and they were very happy with the Rolls-Royce, and they wrote to the marketing department. And they said, listen, I'm very, very happy with my Rolls-Royce, but I don't know what the horsepower is. Could you please tell me? And Rolls-Royce wrote back and said, we're happy that you find the car to your satisfaction. Sir, we'll find the horsepower sufficient. They refused to tell him because that is not what Rolls-Royce is about. You do not buy a Rolls-Royce because of the horsepower. And just because somebody is asking you, tell me this, down the line, refuse to play that game. Say, no, I don't want to tell you about down the line. Let me tell you what's happened in the past. My research has produced. So there is always a benefit. There is always a benefit, and there's always a really, really good return on investment. That return on investment may not necessarily be measured by 40% of plastics, 2/3 of waste is in North America. It may not be that, but it's still extraordinarily valuable. But you've got to be bold enough to be able to say, this is the game I'm playing. I always remember, you've probably read Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. Have you all read Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers? I always remember, I love that beginning where he talks about David versus Goliath. And he talks about, actually, if you really look into it, David was always going to win. It actually wasn't David versus Goliath. David was always going to win. The odds were always stacked in David's favour, not Goliath's favour. But that's because David chose to play the game that suited him, not the game that suited Goliath. And you've got to do the same thing sometimes, thinking, what can I say that is leading to benefits? Does that help you?
Yes.
That wasn't a convincing yes. That was a reluctant shut up yes. I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested.
Well, I hadn't thought of that angle before. I mean, because, well, for example, after tonight I have to write a little blurb. they'll go into an application to RDC as part of something else and say, what can I contribute? How can I make this project that they're asking money for stronger? So the people aspect sort of came through. The fact that I did research with a company in the past, that might help as well. But on a more fundamental level, water is this most essential liquid for life. Yet it's one of the most, or least well understood. So, as someone says statistical mechanics, there's something going on at a high pressure at very low temperatures, which is very strange, and that's responsible for all the weird properties that water has. But often when they ask me, well, okay, so I'm working on this critical point, this nucleation, whatever, I say, well, who cares? And that's where I typically get stuck. So I think I'd be a better scientist if I could also, ask those questions in advance, and then it would.
Which questions?
Why bother knowing this? Why bother finding out?
And what is the answer?
I'm not sure.
No, you are. Well, why do you do? You get up. Do you struggle to get up in the mornings?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I assume most of the time you get to work on time. Most 90%. Yeah. So what is it about getting to work on time? Why? Why do you? There's nobody's probably watching the clock. Why do you do it?
Well, there are a couple of factors. One is the students, right? Because they rely on me, and they're growing up. They have to.
But somebody else could do that. Why you? Why do you want to do that?
Well, I guess I like the problem solving, solving the riddle. That's what.
And how many riddles have you solved in the last, 5 years?
5 years? Well, I've written about 20 papers, so I've solved roughly 20 riddles. That's
your justification. And every single riddle, and the thing is, you don't know before you solve a riddle whether that riddle will lead to something or not.
That's the best part.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I had my job interview, they said, well, what is your research? Where do you see your research in 5 years? Well,
that's why it's called research.
That's why if you knew it weren't hard. If you knew where it was going, it wouldn't really be research.
But sometimes we've really got to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? And they're the answers. We all know the answers. Sometimes we never ask ourselves. And I think you know the answers because you like doing it and you love solving problems. And so what you have is this expert in one of the most fundamental material in life who loves solving riddles. And, what will it lead to? Oh, so many things. So many things. And the funny thing I always find out about people who make these investment decisions is how many of your investments turned out to be correct? Very few. Most people have a 20% success ratio. Whatever you do, don't take investment advice from me. I've got a really bad record on investment. But I do it not because to make money, believe it or not. I do it because I really enjoy it, and I enjoy that I might get it right once. And it's the same thing. That's why you do it. I always liked, why did you climb Everest or something? Why did you climb Everest? Because it was there. So you got to think sometimes that the idea behind today's session is how do you get your message across how do you convey quickly why what you're doing is relevant, why it has benefits, and what impact it has, and why they should carry on funding it. And I think you can answer all those. You may not answer in the same way that your colleague on your right can. I'm confusing left and right. But you can answer it.
Yes.
Good. Good. So, any other questions? Is everybody clear what their ask is? What is your ask? What are you hoping to get?
I'm hoping to partner with an industry to leverage larger grants for my research.
Okay. You're not hoping to?
I'm going to.
You're going to. So you're going to. So why would they want to partner with you?
I work in forest ecosystems and their forest industries, and if we take a more ecological approach to forestry, we can grow trees more effectively and have more sustainable forest management.
Why do we need to do that?
Well, here in Newfoundland, forests aren't growing back, despite the fact that we plant them, we add fertilizer to them. They just aren't growing back quick enough for us to reharvest them.
Really?
Yeah.
So how much of the problem is that?
Well, from an economic standpoint, it's a problem because we're going to run out of trees, and so lots of jobs will be lost in the forest industry.
How many people are employed in forestry?
In this province, 700 or 800, which in a small place is big.
Okay. Wow, so suddenly I'm giving you a picture for... and why do you need to partner with someone?
Because a lot of the grants I apply to require sort of an industrial partner, so I need
And what will the industrial partner get as a benefit?
better understanding of how to manage their forests so that they can have sustainable forests over the long term.
Okay. So so you have to pitch to the the people who own forests?
The forest companies, like
Forest companies.
Yeah.
So have you done any of this?
I've been trying, yeah.
And how do you normally do it? Talk me through your approach.
I often take the angle of, well, there's all this pressure to have certification for your forest. So there's all this pressure to have, there's various certifying bodies. And so if you have a better understanding of the ecology of the system, you can be more successful at getting your certification. But they managed to get certified without me. So they sort of look at me and go, well, why do we need you?
And so what's the answer to that?
I don't have one yet.
Okay, how about... So you know the exercise I did about the grey elephant in Denmark?
Yeah.
Right? Think about that exercise. And there's a serious exercise there. That is a very... I know it sounds like a gimmick, but it's a serious exercise. You need to then... The grey elephant in Denmark is, I need to work with you for certification process, or there's got to be a benefit.
Mm.
So I'd like you to think about what that benefit is. So then what questions do you have to ask, in what sequence, to say, when people ask me questions, I find them engaging, I think they're interested, I think they understand me.
Mm.
When somebody talks to me, they're trying to sell to me, I just want to get off the phone. Even if I want that product, I don't want to be sold to. So how about you ask them a set of questions?
Mm.
How are you managing the issue of, oh, fantastic, I'm doing some research, I'd really be interested. Oh, some people are getting 30% more. Are you getting that? What is your replacement rate like? What would it mean for your business if you did have a much higher replacement rate? Would you be interested in getting a higher replacement rate? Well, I'm working on a project, I don't know if this is of interest to you, but I'm working on a project looking just at that question. And if we worked together, you would have exclusive access to that research. So if you're interested, this is a different topic from the one we're covering today, but it's a book called Spin Selling by someone called Neil Rackham. Spin Selling, it was written by, what I really liked about this was most sales books are terrible because they're written by salespeople. And I'm a salesperson. And what happens is, whenever you ask a salesperson why they're good, they'll tell you, oh, because I'm awesome. And then you ask them, why did you fail in that sale? Oh, the customer's an idiot. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing to learn from that inquiry. Whereas what this person, Neil Rackham, did, he was actually a psychologist and he observed salespeople. And he realised that, very much like Socrates, he realised that the best salespeople had 2 ears and 1 mouth and used them in that proportion. And the best salespeople asked lots of questions, but they asked very specific types of questions that will spin, which were the first set of questions would be situation. Hi, how are you? The weather? What's the weather like? How long have you been in this role? All situation questions. Or if you're from Newfoundland, who's your father? Then there's the second set of questions, which are the problem questions. So what is the issue you're facing? How are you dealing with this problem? It's not a problem for you. Oh, that's fantastic. Would you mind sharing your solutions with them? Would you be willing to be a speaker? Oh, yeah. So what are the problems? So you get them to say the problem, but the problem questions aren't what is your problem, because they won't tell you. And then what people do too often, bad salespeople will jump straight from the problem questions to the answers. Oh, what you need is, it's too early. It's way too early. What you need to do is create a sense of urgency. How many times have we lost a great sale because it was all good, they bought the benefits, but they just didn't have that sense of urgency? And that's because you didn't do the third set of questions, which are the impact. So what impact is that having on your business? What does it mean when that? Do you have to pay more for your wood? Does it make getting certificate? I know you've got certification, but does it make it harder and harder every time you have to go for it? Those kind of impacts, and they suddenly realise, actually, I'm devoting a lot of energy over here because of this problem over there. And then finally, you do the need payoff questions, which is you get them to spend the benefits of an illusory solution. So if you did have a solution that was able to do that, if you did have a forestry recovery rate which was the same as this, what would that mean for your business? And you would want them to daydream. And then, only then, well, thank you very much, that's very helpful. Let me tell you, this might be of interest to you. Because then they're ready to buy. I love buying cars for my friends. I love buying cars. Because human psychology is a wonderful thing. People would much rather not lose money than make money. Mathematically, the outcome is exactly the same. It's identical. It doesn't make sense. But people would rather not lose money than make money. So when you're trying to buy a car or something, what you have to do is you have to make the salesperson spend the commission they've earned. And this works particularly well if you're a woman or if you're from a visible minority. Because if you're a visible minority or a woman, financial services and cars, we always get ripped off. We just do. We always get ripped off. So they love me coming in thinking, easy money. And then what you do is you create a sense of urgency. Listen, I need to buy a car. What's your delivery schedule? What's your delivery times? Da, 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 you know. So I want to buy a car. Da, 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 da. Would you still get it delivered? And how much deposit do I have to pay today? And would you take a credit card? These are all very strong buying signals. And you have to then almost agree to buy a car, almost. And then you have to wait. Let them wait. Because what you want is the salesman spending that commission. So the salesman has now earned that commission. Then you start negotiating. Because now they've already made the money. And the thing they've spent is now slipping out of their hands if they don't close the deal. And then you can negotiate a great deal. A great deal. Whereas most people, when they're buying a car, they go in. Now, let me tell you, I've bought a few cars in my lifetime, and don't you try your fancy sales techniques on me. And they're just going, oh, great. And they haven't spent the money, which is why they don't get emotionally engaged. Whereas you really have to get emotionally engaged. Does that make sense to everybody? Anyway, so that wasn't on the topic of today, Florian. I apologise for the distraction. So, any questions? Because we're actually early. I mean, so we've done the attention. Is everybody good on the attention? Are you all good on the interest statement? How do I make it relevant? Why is it relevant to the audience? And that's about understanding the audience. So what was your next one? Your oxygen thing. I cut you short, which is a bit weird for oxygen. So what was your thing?
If I was to rephrase, I would say the Earth is unique as far as we know as a planet as it hosts life. And how life evolves to the point it is now becomes shrouded as we go further into geological record where there isn't the open book of history that we can read today. We have to pick apart the ancient rock record to find clues for ancient life. I use mass spectrometry to find those clues of ancient life in the rock record. And what I'm looking to do is get a new instrument that can detect life further back in time because the signatures are more fragmented, smaller, harder to detect, and we need modern capabilities. So looking for elements that respond to how the atmosphere changed in the ancient past, and then how those atmosphere changes can be picked up and read in the rock record.
Okay. It's not doing it for me.
Yeah, because it's not business, I guess. I'm not trying to sell.
No, you are. You're trying to sell what you do. I didn't say I'm not interested in investing in you. I didn't say that.
Okay.
I said I'm not interested in. You haven't got me interested yet. How about if you said there are many people who deny climate change. To really understand what's going on in the Earth, we have to delve back millions of years where there's a record of all the climate changes the Earth has experienced and the impact that it's had. It is only by understanding our true past that we can project and look forward into the future. I'm looking at a machine that will give me the ability to do just that. Does that?
Yeah, no, I see.
Because all I'm trying to do is, because what you're doing is worthwhile. You're just going to convey that, and this is what today's about. You're just going to convey that in a way that everybody cares about what you're doing. Whereas if you go into too much, it's, you know what I mean, Bill?
Yeah.
Whereas you've put a modern context to it. I haven't changed anything. I haven't dumbed it down. I haven't sold you out or anything. I haven't deviated from the core message. All I've said is, I'm going to talk about this in a way that gets every single person in this room excited. Does that work for you? What do you do? What is it you're working on? No, you glasses, yes. Sorry, all three of you. I couldn't have picked any other combination.
I do several things, but the thing I was looking to pitch today is a better way of caring for people with diabetes. So my pitch is diabetes is one of the biggest killers in Canada. We spend millions of dollars caring for diabetics, and diabetic patients still, like 80% of diabetic patients still don't get all of the care that's recommended to them. I think we can, I know we can, I will, I have developed a way to ensure, or I have developed a way to get more of the care, to get diabetics more of the care they need, and spend less money doing it.
Okay, great. The most scary pitch I ever heard was somebody said, and you have to stand up for this. They said, in South Africa, this was South Africa, but this in South Africa, it is easier to cope with HIV than it is to cope with diabetes. Who isn't moved by that? And that is true. In South Africa, you're better off having HIV than you are having diabetes. Just think about that for a second.
I don't know if I could say that in Canada.
No, and you don't, and I wouldn't advise you to say it anyway. But it was just, isn't that horrific? But how many people are dying from neglected diabetes? How much is it costing all of us for this diabetes? What is the impact you could have? So, for example, would you? Because one of the side effects of diabetes is you end up with your limbs amputated. I mean, it's horrific. If diabetes isn't properly looked after, the effects are huge. So, can you give me some numbers on that and how your solution would impact? Because you actually have a very, very strong business case, but you haven't given me the data. There's that great quote by Denning: "In God we trust. Everyone else bring me data." You know. So what I need from you is a data to back up your very compelling story. So you might not have data, but you've got a very compelling story. Whereas you've got both. I'm just curious. What are you working on?
My statement would be the preparation of DNA samples is complex. Big labs have very expensive equipment.
I want to stop there.
Okay.
Why have I already lost interest?
Okay.
No. You haven't given me that hierarchy. The preparation of DNA materials is complex. Don't do it then. No, it's like that joke. I went to the doctor and I said to the doctor, whenever I do this, it really hurts. He said, don't do it then. Oh, to use that joke. Yeah, so if the preparation of DNA materials is really complicated, well, cheers, thanks. I solved that problem. Don't do it. So why does it have to be done?
The preparation.
No. Why does it have to be done? Why does DNA material have to be prepared?
Was used for diagnostics around the globe.
How many diagnostics are done where?
In thousands of labs, thousands of times a day in each laboratory.
Okay, so millions of labs, millions times a day. Labs struggle with the complexity of preparing DNA. Without this, they cannot give you an accurate diagnostic of whatever ailment or whatever it is. Yeah. So now you said, oh, this is why it's interesting. It's millions of people. It's got to be done. Right, now then, what next?
Big labs, high volume labs, they have multi-million-dollar equipment, but the majority of labs are small labs that can't afford that. We have a solution to meet the needs of small labs, the small players.
Now how many, so for this, now I'm just coaching this as if this was a business pitch. I'm not saying it is. What percentage of labs around the world are small labs?
80%.
80%, great. So your statement one is millions of, if this was a business pitch, millions of labs every day, or million times a day, labs have to prepare DNA for diagnostics. It's really complex. Now, it's okay for the top 20% of labs who have the budgets to be able to do this, but for the 80% of small labs around the world, this is a real problem. We have come up with a solution that addresses the need for 80% of the DNA preparation market. Our solution is
a unique pipette that automates the process. Takes the human error out of it.
Okay. How much experience do you have in working with pipettes in this field? Why your team? Where's the credibility? Why should I back you and no one else?
3 months.
Wow. Honesty is good. How could we make 3 months better? 90 days. How many
tests?
Sorry?
Thousands of tests.
Thousands of tests. And what? Yeah.
Better way to pitch it. I'm a physician, I'm an engineer, and I see this on a day in, day out basis.
Beautiful. But as a physician with over how much experience do you have as a physician?
10 years.
10 years. As a 10-year physician with an engineering background, how many people have that background? That's a weird background, isn't it? Wow.
Matches my personality.
Wow, that's fantastic. So I'm a physician, and I'm a physician with 10 years experience and an engineer. So this is a problem I personally deal with on a daily basis. And then if it was a business pitch, and I think this is very, very commercializable, clearly, then you would explain your business model, how you'd roll it out, how you'd make money, and then what is your ask? How much money would you want? From whom? I like that. Do you understand why, when you say the preparation of DNA is complex, you still have to say that, but you have to say something before that, so I'm still paying attention. It's the stand-up thing.
Yeah, it needs to be the volume, the
Yes.
magnitude.
Yeah, it needs to be, it has to happen daily, otherwise diagnostics don't get done. You know, if you just say there's a real problem with the way pencils are sharpened, well, use a pen then. You know, it's interesting, this is true. Didn't NASA spend something like 7 million on developing a pen that worked in space? And the Russians just use a pencil. It's true. Tempura mattresses came out of NASA because they had to develop a mattress that would work in space. Tempura was the best they could come up with. So, any other questions? Because I always like to finish on time.
What's the is there an intrinsic difference between pitching the government, which is not necessarily involved in the immediate payback, and if that was something where a commercial company, which is interested in the book solidly?
Yes, there is a difference, and that is about understanding the audience. What are the metrics they want? So with the basic research, it might be employment. It may actually not be, show me the ROI in terms of investment. They may think there is. But what would the government, so what is it you do, if you don't want to ask?
I'm a biochemist.
Biochemist. And what would your statement be for funding?
Okay, I'd say I want to extract a substance called betaine from shrimp, which is known to be able to treat fatty liver disease. Fatty liver disease is the most prevalent chronic liver disease in the world today. And for $300,000, I can see if we can get sufficient betaine and sufficient in the purity.
Okay, so how many people suffer from this disease?
20%
of
in the Western world of adults.
20% of adults in the world,
Yes.
in the Western world,
the
suffer
Western
from.
world and the third world is beginning to catch up with us.
And do people die from this disease, or?
It progresses to cancer and to cirrhosis.
Is obesity part of the problem?
No. Yes, the big problem, yes.
Yeah, it is. So you don't have, if you're not obese,
you're less likely. Diabetes and obesity both are.
I think you've just pitched it. No, seriously, I think you've just pitched it very well. But the government will be interested in, you need, private investors will come into this. So why do governments exist? That's, and that isn't a philosophical question. And there are many answers to that. The governments exist governments exist in the private sector or the commercial sector when there is a market failure. In pharmaceutical, in life sciences, there are two big types of market failures. One is orphan diseases, which clearly this is not. This is not an orphan disease. Clearly. The second is where there just isn't sufficient patient capital, or capital is too risky. The capital you're looking for at this stage is very, very high risk, because the problem with health is often it's binary, the outcomes are binary. With most research, like the plastic research, for example, he may do some research which says this is not ideal, but it still improves performance by 20% or 30% or something. With you, it either works or it doesn't. For that, governments know they have to step in with $300,000, otherwise you will take that knowledge somewhere else like Boston or Minneapolis where they might fund it, and you could be sitting on the next big thing. So that $300,000 what would it do for them? If we are right and this does work, we have bucket loads of shrimp here. We are well placed to be able to exploit this. At MUN we have a leading medical, we have all the factors we need to turn this into a huge business that could be grown from here. But what we need is the 300,000 of the highest risk capital to get us past that stage. Does that make sense? And that's why it's appropriate for government. And with what you're saying to government is, because the problem is if you have a really, really good pitch, like a wow pitch, the governor's going to say, great, and why can't you get the private sector involved? And that is, so what you've got to pitch is, this is great, this is big, and this is why the private sector won't come in. And this is why you've got to come in, because it's such high risk. At this stage, it's very, very high risk. Because even once the $300,000 is spent, and you know, yes, it does work, you've still got a very, very long way to go before you're going to be selling drugs. But at least at that stage, private capital will start coming in. You hope. Does that make sense?
No, it does, yeah.
Okay. So I hope that's helpful. Right, is there anything I've missed that you were hoping I would cover? I'm going to find out in another 10 minutes who the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is. My money is on Theresa May. I really hope she married somebody. Everybody called Theresa should marry somebody called Green. Theresa Green. Any other questions? Sorry?
Or Brown.
Or Brown, Theresa Brown.
Brown,
that works. That works. I'll start where I began. Any other questions at all? Did everybody get what they wanted out of this? Are you happy? Everybody's happy? Any questions at all? No? Well, thank you very, very, very much for coming. If you do have any questions, ask Florian or Carlos. Carlos, thank you very, very much for arranging this. If you do have questions, if you do want to help, there is a lot of help available. Carlos is here to help with anything to do with helping you get your project to the next stage with funding and with research and grants, etc. There are also a whole team. The Memorial Centre of Entrepreneurship is also here to help with your entrepreneurial endeavours. I actually work with the Genesis Centre, which is based on campus. Today, although tomorrow's my last day, I've been here for the last month, so it's great. I get to meet the academics at the very end. But I am going to be available on and off. Thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I hope you have as well. And I wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.